Thank you very much, Dr. Purendra, and it's always a pleasure being with you. Dr. Purendra is doing excellent work in Gwalior, and I think he has one of the biggest facilities there. I'll be talking about multifocal intraocular lenses, and as you are looking, the days of doing camp surgeries and maybe just trying to rehabilitate patients with thick opaque glasses has gone. And we are today looking at target emetropia. So target emetropia essentially means that we are wanting to reduce the dependence or eliminate the dependence on glasses both for near, intermediate and distance. As things are changing, the profile of cataract patients is also changing. People remain active much later in life. After their retirement, they want to do activities which they may not have done earlier. Also, there is an increase in the incidence of patients in the younger age group developing cataract. So therefore, the lifestyle is demanding. And with this demanding lifestyle, we are also operating patients much before they become 6-12 or worse. Now, when you are looking at multifocal lenses, multifocal actually at times may be a misnomer, so they may actually be bifocal lenses, but they are all lumped together as multifocal. So in a multifocal or bifocal lens, there are two or more focuses that are formed at the same moment on the eye, and this is then negated by the brain. That means that the brain picks up the image that it needs to be on focus. So this needs some amount of neuroadaptation. That is something which is very important. And this at times, there are going to be patients who may not get adapted to this particular thing. So whenever you are looking at multifocal lenses, it is always said that you need to counsel the patient, you need to tell the patient that there are certain drawbacks. The patient would also be required to be examined so that there is no great amount of pre-existing astigmatism. However, in today's world, astigmatism and bitoric IOLs can be corrected as a combination of toric multifocal lenses. The patient should be reasonably motivated for getting eliminated or rid or reduced dependence on glasses, and hyperopic patients are by far the best to go ahead for this. But whenever a patient comes to me with having searched the net with 20 questions, I normally put 3 big question marks on this patient and say that I don't think this is the guy, because any type A personality, anxious personality, may not be the best person to go in for a multifocal lens. Well, as you can see that there are companies after companies who have worked on these multifocal lenses, and this by no means is a complete list. Indian companies are also providing. Couple of lenses that I personally have used one is the Tecnis multifocal acrylic IOL. You can see it's 13 millimeter overall diameter, the haptics offset for a 3-point fixation, and this is a continuous 360-degree posterior edge, 6 millimeter lens, and you can see that the bifocality is extending from one side to the other side, as you can see here. Okay, then you go on to the Alcon technology, wherein the Alcon came up with what they called as a proprietary apodized diffractive aspheric technology. The lens is aspheric and it has an apodization, which for them means blending, and as it blends, the amount of dysphotopsias or glare or halo becomes less. So the important considerations for patient selection would be that, first of all, a patient should not be type A, as I told you. Biometry is something which is very essential. Contact A scan is something which is out. You should either be doing an immersion, but the better is to do like the IOL Master or the Hug Street equivalent, Lenstar, etc. What else is very important is that the rhexis needs to be central, and you should have an adequate cortical cleanup. Now, when you look at the outcomes, the only 45% of the surgeries fall within half a diopter of the intended refraction, and 72% are within the range of 1, and if you expand this range to 2 diopters, there are about 94%. So therefore, the IOL power calculation still is not bang on. or there are factors within the surgery and post-operative period which could alter the effective lens position. And the effective lens position is altered by the capsulorhexis. So capsulorhexis is something which is very important, and some amount of decentration would accentuate the amount of glare, as you can see on this wavefront deformation. Now for multifocal IOLs, I would say femtocataract surgery as a surgical procedure takes us closer to perfection, as it gives you an ideal capsulorhexis size, shape and location, and it creates self-sealing clear corneal incisions. Also, LRIs can treat pre-existing corneal astigmatism to the level of, say, a diopter and a half or maybe 2 diopter. And you can see here with a femtocataract, the capsulorhexis being absolutely round. This is the docking of a femto procedure. This is the marking, and you can see that this is the toricity and this is the capsulorhexis. We have done a cyclorotation, if you saw, for the axis to align. Can you see the alignment of the axis? Then the procedure goes on to getting you an image on the OCT. So you get an image on the OCT, that is the capsule, you can see, anterior capsule, which comes into play. Once you have the anterior capsule, these two dots have to be matched onto the highest and the lowest point of the capsule. As you see, we are bringing it here. And once you have the capsule marked out, the anterior capsule, you have the next OCT image which comes, which is the hemisection of the cataractus lens. And there you have to match this, leave behind, can you see this? This is up to which you will have the fractionation, and you leave behind about 500 to 800 microns of default. And then the next thing that comes is the corneal incision. On the OCT, can you see this? This is the corneal incision which comes into play. You set this corneal incision at about 90% of the depth, and after that the next play would be the LRI. You can see that we have marked the LRI on the edge, and then you'll just get the display of the, can you see this? This is the corneal thickness in the periphery for the LRI, and you mark it at 90% depth. Once you have done this, we will press the foot switch, and you can see here this is the foot switch, and can you see the capsulorhexis coming? Round, beautiful circular capsulorhexis. And then you have the 4-quadrant crack. You could do a 6 or a 8-quadrant crack, that really doesn't matter. And then you will have the LRI come first. Just watch. This will be the LRI at the extreme edge. Can you see this? That's an LRI that's coming. And then you have the primary incision that comes. And then as the primary incision will close, will get over, you have the secondary incision that comes. So the surgeon-induced astigmatism can be well marked, and you can have an excellent know of how the lens is going to position, because you see this is the perfect capsulorhexis. We can just see that this is the opening of the LRI. Can you see that? You could open it later, but I prefer to open it on the table, and this is the capsulorhexis which is being taken out. So rest of the procedure of phacoemulsification will be the same. You see that's the capsulorhexis which kind of comes out very easily. That's it being taken out. I'll just skip the rest of it because that's essentially the phaco procedure and implanting of the intraocular lens. So the technique of femto-assisted cataract surgery, I would say, is something which is great. Same patient operated elsewhere with a multifocal lens, and the same patient operated with a femto at our center. So you can see that the difference between the two is going to, obviously the capsulorhexis is going to impact the outcome of the target emetropia. Now if we look at newer developments in the multifocal technology, multifocal technology essentially worked on two principles. One was a refractive IOL, refractive multifocal IOL. As you can see here, there are clear zones of near, distance and intermediate. That was the array lens. And then you have diffract based on the Fresnel prism. You have these gyrations, and all of them come to 2-point focuses, that is for near and for distance. So this is the refractive and diffractive, and the Zeiss table has come out with what is called as the LISA technology, which is a merger of the refractive diffractive kind of situation, and is a solution to that. The LISA component, basically L stands for light distributed asymmetrically. That means that the light is going to be differently distributed for distance and near. It is independent of the pupil size, and there is the SMP technology, that means a smoothing of the ridges which are there, and it is also abrasion correcting. So if you have these steps typically, and you see on your left, that is the typical steps that you have in a diffractive, and this is in the SMP technology, wherein you have smoothing of these lenses. Now the AT LISA is come out with a trifocal lens, and I have had an opportunity to use a little bit less than, I think I have used about 7 of these trifocal lenses, and you can see that the curve is different between the red, the bifocal, and the blue, the trifocal. So in the trifocal, the basic thing is that there is an add for 3.33 for near, okay, and there is an add for 1.66 for intermediate. So you have actually 3 focuses: near, intermediate, and distance. And these are basically the points. You can see the sinusoidal bell curve, which gives you highest optical efficiency, and the light is divided into 50% for distance, 20% for intermediate, and 30% for near. So this is the trifocal LISA technology, which we are very happy with, and this is the this actually goes through an MICS platform. You can see this is the lens, the same MICS injector that you have that is being injected, and round capsular axis is there. You just after the injection, you will see on the red glow the rings. Just watch, it will just come in about 3-4 seconds. Can you see those rings? Can you see them? So these are trifocal rings which are there with the trifocal lens. Then you have companies changing their ads. So ads started with +4, came down to 3.5, came down to 3, came down to 2.5. 2.5 is actually giving you more of intermediate distance than for reading distance, and you could mix and match that. You could do a +3 in one eye and a +2.5 in the other eye. Now, what do you do in patients with astigmatism along with the desire for multifocality? So you have the toric platform of multifocal lenses. All companies have almost come out with this toric multifocal. You have toric multifocal from Alcon, you have toric multifocal from AMO, you have toric multifocal from Zeiss also. So you could, because in a multifocal lens, residual astigmatism is much more disastrous than having residual astigmatism in a monofocal lens. The dysphotopsias, the glare, and the halos become much more. So you have the same design, you have these dots, can you see that? And then you need to match them on the alignment axis. The posterior surface is the toric lens surface in the IQ Restore, and otherwise it's the same kind of platform. And you have these wherein you could correct the cylindrical power with multifocality as of now up to 3 diopters. So residual refractive error, if left in a multifocal IOL, would require a touch-up. We are not doing a post-IOL LASIK surgery to that extent, but in US, a touch-up of residual refractive error with a LASIK is something which is very good. And you need to wait for 3 months for the thing to settle down before you take the patient up for LASIK. So to sum up, the question that you would ask is, do multifocal IOLs work? The answer is yes. And then the next question is, do multifocal IOLs work perfectly in everybody's hand for every patient? I would say the answer is a big no. So that is the problem. Whenever there is a technology, the technology should be such that it has to work in all cases in everybody's hand. So there are certain things, because essentially you are splitting light in a multifocal lens, and this splitting of light at times is not tolerated by the patients. However, to minimize these the noise in it, you need to have accurate pre-op planning, precise surgical outcomes, and looking at the patient acceptability for this procedure, and you need to work upon that. So you have these options: monovision for presbyopia. You have monovision with monofocal IOLs. That means overcorrect one of the eyes. Bilateral multifocal, you could have bilateral multifocal +3 +4, or you could have a 2.5. And in cases you mix and match a 2.5 with a 3.5, or you could use a trifocal lens, which can be there. There's just a odd case that I'm just trying to show. This is a toric multifocal lens that I had implanted with Zeiss, and suddenly day one the patient was 6.6, but after a week the patient came with a change in the refractive status, and the patient was not reading. What actually happened was a capsular distension. That means we had misdirection of the aqueous, and the aqueous went behind the lens, and there was a block, and the lens got pushed forward. So all I did was I pushed down the lens, washed it off, and this thing settled down. So this is just to show you that this is one odd complication that I had. So post-op refractive surprises could be there, and in this particular case, as I told you, we had to look at capsular distension. And for premium IOLs, if there is a residual power, I told you we can look at PRK or LASIK, which can be there. So all in all, that I am trying to tell you is that multifocal lenses need to have an additional effort that needs to be put in, and the results are good. I would not say that they are excellent for every patient. They are good, and you should keep this as an option in your armamentarium. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.